Picture this. You're a decent guy with a stable job. You've worked hard to get where you are. You spend 2 hours getting ready for a date, picking the right place, making reservations at a restaurant you can barely afford. You drive across town. You pay for parking, you pay for dinner, you pay for drinks. The conversation flows well enough. She seems interested. You drop her off with a goodnight that feels promising. 3 days later, she ghosts you. No explanation, no courtesy text, just silence. And you're out $200 for the pleasure of being treated like an ATM machine with legs. Now here's where it gets interesting. Society tells you that's just how dating works. That's the game. That's what a real man does. You're supposed to smile, absorb the loss, and do it all over again next weekend with someone new. Because if you complain, if you question the system, if you dare suggest that maybe this isn't fair, you're labeled as cheap, broke, bitter, or not a real man. Welcome to modern dating in 2025, where equality is preached everywhere except when the check arrives. This is the conversation nobody wants to have. The uncomfortable truth that reveals the biggest double standard in modern relationships. A standard that's quietly driving millions of men out of the dating market entirely. And today, we're going to break down exactly why this system is rigged, what it's costing men, and why women should care that men are finally saying enough is enough. Let's talk about money, expectations, and the lie we've all been sold about equality in dating. The numbers are devastating. Studies show that 90% of the time, men pay for the first date. 90%, not 50-50, not even 70-30, 90%. In an era where women outnumber men in college, in law school, in medical school. In an era where young women in major cities actually out-earn their male counterparts. In an era where we've supposedly demolished traditional gender roles and embraced full equality. Yet somehow, this one ancient rule remains carved in stone. The man pays, always. A recent survey found that 77% of people still expect men to pick up the check on a first date. Not split it, not take turns. The man pays the entire bill while the woman sits back and evaluates whether he's generous enough, successful enough, provider enough. It's a test, and if you fail it, you don't get a second chance. But here's what nobody talks about. The true cost isn't just the dinner. It's the cumulative bleeding of your bank account, date after date, month after month, with most of these connections leading absolutely nowhere. One man tracked his dating expenses for a single month. 5 dates, 5 different women. By the time he added up the Ubers, the coffees, the dinners, the activities, he had spent over $627. $627 just to see if there was any potential for a long-term relationship with any of these women. And guess what? None of them worked out. Let that sink in for a moment. $627 for 5 failed connections. And this is considered normal. This is what society expects men to do without complaint. Because if you suggest coffee instead of dinner, you're cheap. If you propose splitting the bill, you're not a gentleman. If you pick somewhere affordable, she complains that you're not trying hard enough. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, and broke either way. Meanwhile, the women on these dates, many of them openly admit they're going on dates for free meals. There are entire social media threads where women brag about using dating apps as their personal restaurant budget. They swipe right, they agree to meet, they order the most expensive items on the menu, and they have zero intention of ever seeing that man again. It's called foodie calls in the research literature, and studies confirm it's a real phenomenon. Some women genuinely use dating apps to get free food from men they have no romantic interest in whatsoever. But if you're a man and you bring this up, if you express frustration about being used as a wallet, you're told you're bitter. You're told not all women are like that. You're told to choose better. The blame always circles back to you, never to the system, never to the double standard, always to your judgment, your choices, your failure to spot the users and manipulators. And here's the truly insidious part. The same women who demand that men pay for everything are often the same women who lecture men about toxic masculinity and outdated gender roles. They want equality in the workplace, equality in politics, equality in every sphere of life. Except dating, except courtship, except when the check comes. Then suddenly, tradition matters. Then suddenly, biology matters. Then suddenly, men need to be providers and protectors and leaders. You can't have it both ways. You can't demand equality and then cherry pick which parts of tradition you want to keep because they benefit you. This is the core double standard. Women have made enormous strides toward independence and equality. And that's good. That's progress. But many women don't want to give up old school courtship and chivalry. They don't want to admit that expecting men to always pay is fundamentally unfair in a world where both partners are supposed to be equals. Because nobody wants to give up a good thing. Men don't want to share equally in housework and childcare, and despite progress, many still don't. Women don't want to give up being treated like royalty while contributing nothing financially to the courtship process. It's human nature, but let's not pretend it's fair. Let's not pretend it's equality. The psychology behind this expectation reveals even darker truths. Research shows that when men pay for dates, it increases their expectations for sex. That's not an opinion, that's data. Men who pay for expensive dates are more likely to think sex should be expected in return. Now, that doesn't make it right, but it does make it human. When you invest resources, you expect some return on that investment, and women know this. Some women use this dynamic deliberately. They accept expensive dates, they accept gifts, they accept the financial investment, and then they act shocked when the man expects something in return. But they knew. They understood the unspoken contract. They just didn't plan to honor their end. On the flip side, women report feeling pressured at the end of dates when men have paid. They describe a vibe of "I fed you, now you owe me." And that's a real concern. That pressure is real, which is why some women insist on splitting the bill. Not because of financial fairness, but because they want to eliminate expectations. They don't want to feel like they owe the man anything. And that's actually reasonable. But here's the problem. If you're a man and you accept her offer to split, you're also judged. Many women will split the bill on a first date and then tell their friends that the guy didn't pay, which means he's not really interested, which means he's not worth a second date. So even when women offer to pay, it's often a test to see if you'll refuse. And if you don't refuse, you fail. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Let's talk about what this expectation actually represents. Paying for dates isn't about the money itself. It's about what the money signifies. It's about power. It's about proving your worth. It's about demonstrating that you're successful enough, ambitious enough, generous enough to be considered a viable partner. Dating experts openly admit this. They say the man should pay to set the tone that this is a date, not a networking meeting. That paying demonstrates how the man feels about the woman. That refusing to pay signals lack of interest or lack of resources. But think about what that means. It means your worth as a man is being measured by your wallet. Your value is being calculated in dollars spent. And if you don't have enough dollars to spend, or if you don't want to spend them on strangers who might ghost you, then you're not considered worthy of love or companionship. That's not romance, that's prostitution with extra steps. You're literally paying for access to someone's time and attention with no guarantee of anything in return. And the worst part? Women are incentivized to drag this process out as long as possible. Why commit to one man when you can rotate through 5 guys who are all competing to buy your affection? Why settle when you can keep testing the market, going on dates 3 nights a week, all expenses paid? The system rewards women for staying single and playing the field, and it punishes men for participating by draining their bank accounts and their hope. This is where the resentment builds. This is where men start to check out. Because it's not just about one expensive date, it's about the pattern. It's about doing this over and over, month after month, year after year, with nothing to show for it except a lighter wallet and a heavier heart. You start to realize you're not dating, you're auditioning, you're performing. You're proving yourself worthy while the woman sits back and judges whether you meet her standards. Standards that, by the way, are often completely disconnected from what she brings to the table. Let's address that elephant in the room. The standards. Women have a list. Height, income, education, career, car, home, social status, confidence, emotional intelligence, sense of humor, ambition. The list goes on, and if you don't check every box, you're out. You're not good enough. You're rejected before you even get a chance. Meanwhile, if you as a man dare suggest that you have preferences, that you have standards, that you want a woman who's fit, feminine, friendly, and has her life together, you're shallow. You're toxic. You're part of the problem. The double standard strikes again. Women are allowed to have any standards they want. Men are shallow for having any standards at all. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about what women actually bring to modern dating. Because this is the part that makes men furious. In previous generations, there was a trade. Men provided resources, protection, and stability. Women provided domestic skills, nurturing, sexual exclusivity, and children. It was a clear exchange. Both sides contributed something of value. Both sides had skin in the game. But modern dating? Women want men to provide everything men provided in the past. Resources, protection, status. While women provide nothing that women provided in the past. No domestic skills, because that's sexist. No sexual exclusivity, because that's slut-shaming. No children, because career comes first. No nurturing, because that's emotional labor. So what exactly is the man getting in return for his investment? The pleasure of her company, her conversation, her presence. That's not a relationship. That's paying an escort without the guarantee of anything physical. And women wonder why men are walking away. Women wonder why so many men have given up on dating entirely. They blame men for being lazy, for being afraid of commitment, for being intimidated by strong women. But that's not it. Men aren't afraid. Men are tired. Tired of being used. Tired of being tested. Tired of being told they're not good enough while being expected to prove their worth through their credit card. Here's what's really happening. Men are doing a cost-benefit analysis. They're looking at modern dating and asking themselves, is this worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And for millions of men, the answer is no. It's not worth spending hundreds of dollars on strangers. It's not worth the emotional exhaustion of constant rejection. It's not worth the humiliation of being ghosted after you've invested time, money, and effort. It's not worth the risk of being accused of something you didn't do. It's not worth dealing with women who have the attitude of, I'm the prize and you need to earn me. So they're opting out. They're focusing on their careers, their hobbies, their friendships, their peace of mind. They're building their lives without the drama and expense of modern dating. And they're happier for it. This isn't men being afraid of women. This is men making a rational choice about how to spend their limited resources and energy. And the dating market is reflecting this shift. Apps are reporting declining male engagement. Men are deleting profiles. Men are refusing to play by rules that are clearly rigged against them. But here's what women need to understand. When men opt out, women lose too. Because despite all the talk about independence, most women still want relationships. They still want partnership. They still want marriage and family, eventually. But the pool of men willing to participate in this circus is shrinking. The good men, the stable men, the men with resources and ambition, they're the ones leaving first. They have options. They have self-respect. They're not desperate enough to accept being treated like walking ATMs. So they exit the market. And what's left? The men who will tell women whatever they want to hear to get what they want. The manipulators, the players, the men who have learned to game the system without investing resources or emotions. This is the paradox. Women keep raising their standards and their expectations, demanding more and more from men while offering less and less in return. And the result isn't better men. The result is fewer men. Fewer men willing to approach. Fewer men willing to pay. Fewer men willing to commit. Because the men who would make the best partners are the same men who refuse to be exploited. Now, some women reading this will say, I'm not like that. I offer to pay. I split the bill. I don't have unrealistic expectations, and if that's true, good. You're the exception. But the data shows you're in the minority. The vast majority of women still expect traditional courtship. They still expect men to pursue, to plan, to pay. And they still judge men harshly when they don't. If you're genuinely different, then you need to make that clear early. You need to signal to men that you're not playing the same game as everyone else. Because right now, men assume every woman is the same until proven otherwise. And they're protecting themselves accordingly. Let's talk about the men who are still in the game. The ones who are trying to make it work. These men are exhausted. They're going on date after date, spending their savings, hoping that maybe this time will be different. Maybe this woman will actually appreciate the effort. Maybe this connection will actually lead somewhere. But statistically, it won't. Most first dates don't lead to second dates. Most second dates don't lead to relationships. Most relationships don't lead to marriage. So men are gambling with their money and their emotions on odds that would make a casino blush. And here's the thing, men aren't asking for much. They're not asking women to pay for everything. They're not asking to be pursued and worshipped. They're just asking for fairness. They're asking for reciprocity. They're asking for women to contribute something, anything, to the courtship process. Whether that's splitting the bill, or planning a date, or showing genuine appreciation, or making an effort to be pleasant company. But even that seems like too much to ask. Because modern dating culture has convinced women that they're doing men a favor by showing up, that their presence alone is the gift, that men should be grateful for the opportunity to spend money on them. And this attitude is everywhere, on social media, in dating advice columns, in conversations between female friends. The message is consistent. If he's not willing to invest in you, he's not worth your time. But what about the reverse? If she's not willing to invest in you, why is she worth your time? This brings us to the biological argument that women love to use. They say, well, women have to carry babies. Women have more at stake biologically. Women are the selectors, men are the competitors. Therefore, men should pay. And on a purely evolutionary level, there's some truth to that. In ancestral environments, female reproductive investment was higher. Women risked pregnancy and childbirth, so they needed to be selective about partners, and men competed for access to women through displays of resources and status. But we're not living in ancestral environments anymore. We're living in 2025. Women have birth control. Women have careers. Women have financial independence. Women can choose whether or not to have children. The biological constraints that justify traditional courtship no longer exist. So why are we still following the rules from 10,000 years ago? Because it benefits women, simple as that. Women want the advantages of modernity without giving up the advantages of tradition. They want equality when it suits them and chivalry when it suits them. And men are supposed to just accept this contradiction without complaint. But men are waking up to the con. They're realizing that the system isn't designed to help them find love. It's designed to extract resources from them in exchange for the possibility of female attention. And that possibility is getting more remote by the day, because women's standards keep inflating while their willingness to contribute keeps deflating. It's an unsustainable model, and it's collapsing in real time. Let's look at what happens when men try to set boundaries. When they say, I'm not paying for expensive dates anymore. I'm keeping first dates simple. Coffee or a walk in the park. Something low investment until I know there's mutual interest. What happens? Women on dating apps reject them immediately. They say, if he suggests coffee, he's cheap. If he's not willing to invest in me up front, he's not serious. But here's the question. Why should a man invest hundreds of dollars in a stranger? Why should he prove his worth before you've proven yours? What have you done to earn that level of investment? Nothing. The answer is nothing. You created a profile with some photos and some generic interests. You swiped right. You showed up, that's it. That doesn't entitle you to a 5-star dining experience funded by someone else. But women have been conditioned to believe it does. They've been told they're worth it. They've been told to never settle. They've been told that their time is valuable and men should pay for the privilege of occupying it. But men's time is valuable too. Men's money is valuable too. Men's emotions are valuable too. Yet nobody seems to care about that. The reality is this: if both people are equal, then both people should contribute equally. If both people want to explore a potential relationship, then both people should invest time, money, and effort proportionally. That's what equality actually means. Not men doing everything while women sit back and judge whether it's good enough. But this common sense approach is treated as radical, as offensive, as proof that men don't know how to treat women right. And this is where the anger comes from. Men are angry because they're being gaslit. They're being told that everything is equal while experiencing blatant inequality at every turn. They're being told they're wrong for noticing. They're being told they're toxic for objecting. They're being told to man up and stop complaining. But complaining about unfairness isn't weakness. It's sanity. It's recognizing that you're being exploited and refusing to accept it. So what's the solution? For men, it's simple. Stop playing the game. Stop spending money on women who haven't earned it. Stop trying to impress women who won't appreciate it. Stop dating women who expect you to prove your worth through your wallet. Set your boundaries early. Suggest low investment first dates. See how she reacts. If she's offended by coffee, if she expects dinner at an expensive restaurant, if she acts entitled to your money, walk away. She's showing you exactly who she is. Believe her. Focus on building your life. Focus on your career, your health, your friendships, your passions. Become the kind of man who doesn't need validation from women. Become the kind of man who has options. Because when you have options, you're no longer desperate. You're no longer willing to accept bad deals. You're no longer spending money on women who don't respect you. And ironically, when you reach that point, when you genuinely don't need women's approval, that's when women start chasing you. Because you've become rare. You've become valuable. You've become the man who doesn't play by their rules. For women, the solution is harder. Because it requires admitting that you've been part of the problem. It requires recognizing that your expectations are unfair. It requires understanding that men are human beings with feelings and finances, not ATMs with abs. It requires asking yourself, if I expect men to pay for me, what am I offering in return that justifies that expense? And if the answer is just my presence, then you need to recalibrate. Because your presence isn't that valuable to a stranger. It becomes valuable through genuine connection, through mutual investment, through reciprocity. If you're a woman who genuinely wants equality, prove it through your actions. Offer to split the bill and mean it. Don't offer as a test. Don't offer expecting him to refuse. Actually pay your half. Plan dates sometimes. Make an effort to be interesting company, not just pretty decoration. Show appreciation for his time and effort. Treat him like a human being, not an opportunity. These are basic courtesies. Yet they're so rare in modern dating that the men who experience them remember it for years. And here's what will happen if women don't adjust. The quality of available men will continue to decline. Because the best men will continue opting out. They'll focus on their mission. They'll build their empire. They'll travel, invest, create, grow. And they'll do it alone or with women who appreciate them. Meanwhile, the dating pool will be left with men who are desperate or manipulative. Men who will pay because they have no other options. Men who will lie because they know what you want to hear. Men who will pretend to be providers until they get what they want and then disappear. Is that what you want? Is that the result of your high standards and your expectations? The truth is, modern dating has become a wasteland for both sexes. Women are frustrated because they can't find men who meet their standards. Men are frustrated because their efforts aren't appreciated and their wallets are being drained. Everyone is blaming everyone else. Nobody is taking responsibility for their own contribution to the problem. But the numbers don't lie. Marriage rates are declining, birth rates are collapsing, loneliness is epidemic, and nobody seems to know how to fix it. Or maybe they do know, and they just don't want to admit it. Because the fix requires sacrifice. It requires giving up privilege. It requires actual equality. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to acknowledge. For dating to work, both people need to bring something to the table. Both people need to be worth the investment. Both people need to make the other person's life better, not just more expensive. But modern dating culture has created a system where women are encouraged to take without giving, and men are shamed for noticing. Where women's standards are empowerment, but men's standards are toxicity. Where women's needs are non-negotiable, but men's needs are irrelevant. This isn't sustainable. This isn't healthy. This isn't love. Real love is reciprocal. Real partnerships are balanced. Real relationships involve mutual investment from day one, not men auditioning and paying for the privilege, while women decide if they're good enough. That's not courtship. That's exploitation. And the men who refuse to participate aren't the problem. They're the solution. They're the ones who still have enough self-respect to say no to a rigged game. They're the ones who refuse to be financial tools for women's entertainment. They're the ones who understand that their worth isn't measured in dollars spent. And they're the ones who will eventually find women who appreciate them for who they are, not what they can buy. So to every man reading this who's exhausted from modern dating, who's tired of being used as a wallet, who's frustrated by the double standards, you're not alone. You're not crazy, you're not cheap, you're not a failure. You're a rational human being who's recognized an unfair system and chosen not to participate. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's strength, that's self-respect. Don't let anyone shame you for protecting yourself. Don't let anyone guilt you into spending money on people who don't value you. Don't let anyone convince you that your worth is determined by your willingness to be exploited. And to every woman reading this who's offended by this message, ask yourself why. Ask yourself if your expectations are truly fair. Ask yourself what you're offering in return for what you're demanding. Ask yourself if you'd be happy if the roles were reversed. If you'd be content dating someone who expected you to pay for everything while contributing nothing. If you'd appreciate being judged solely on your financial resources, while your character, your effort, your kindness meant nothing. If the answer is no, then why are you expecting men to accept what you wouldn't? The financial double standard in dating isn't a small issue. It's not a minor inconvenience. It's a fundamental inequality that's destroying modern relationships. It's pushing good men out of the market. It's rewarding bad behavior. It's creating resentment on both sides. And until we're willing to have honest conversations about it, until we're willing to admit that equality means equality in all areas, including dating, nothing will change. The wasteland will continue to grow, the loneliness will continue to spread, and everyone will continue wondering why connection has become so difficult to find. The answer is simple. Connection is difficult because fairness is absent, because reciprocity is dead, because one side is expected to give everything while the other side gives nothing but judgment. And that's not a foundation for love. That's a foundation for exploitation. So the question is, are you ready to build something different? Are you ready to demand fairness? Are you ready to walk away from people who don't value you? Because until you are, nothing changes, and the double standard wins, and everyone loses. This is the truth they don't want you to know. This is the reality they hide behind pretty words about tradition and romance and gender roles. This is why men are walking away, not because they hate women, not because they're afraid of commitment, but because they're done being treated like ATMs in a society that pretends to value equality. And maybe, just maybe, if enough people wake up to this truth, things might finally start to change.